An Arab female journalist is asking a bold question. What if Christians were suicide bombers? Nadine Al-Budair penned an article in a Kuwait newspaper asking Muslims in the Middle East how they would respond if Christian suicide bombers struck their cities or tried to convert them to Christianity. The journalist says Arab countries have refused to address the problem of terrorism and have yet to create a climate that matches the liberal humanitarian climate of the West. Al-Budair also writes that tolerance for Muslims is fading in the West because they refuse to confront the Islamic extremism by referencing Donald Trump's declaration of barring Muslims from the U.S. The journalist went on to say that Muslims can't condemn statements like Trump's without addressing the failures of the Arab culture. She claims Muslim nations should apologize to the rest of the world. So is there truth to her claims, and should Muslim nations start to address the terrorism problem in their countries? That's our topic this half hour, and we certainly want to hear from you on Facebook and on Twitter, so make sure you join the discussion. Joining us live in the newsroom is Fox 26 legal analyst Chris Tritico, Democratic media consultant Mustafa Tamiz, and Republican strategist and public policy analyst Jackie Bally. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this one.
You know, when I first saw this story, I was shocked to see a Arab female pen something like this in an Arab country. I was happy to see it too, that someone in an Arab country was finally standing up and saying to Arab leadership and Arab countries, we have to start addressing the issue of terrorism that we are facing in our own countries. I think it was a bold move by anyone in an Arab country to say this needs to be addressed at home. And I want to just read a short segment of what she said. Imagine a Western youth coming here and carrying out a suicide mission in one of our public squares in the name of the cross. Imagine that two skyscrapers had collapsed in some Arab capital, that an extremist Christian group donning a millennium-old garb had emerged to take responsibility for the event while stressing its determination to revive Christian teachings or some Christian ruling according to its understanding to live like it did at the time of Jesus. And what would happen in our Arab countries if we didn't address the problem today? Jackie.
So she's asking questions that I'm sure many Christians have been asking, but are probably afraid to say out loud or ask out loud because the terms of racism or prejudice would be slapped across their faces. So I think not only is she extremely bold, but she's actually bringing up topics that are very thought-provoking and we need to actually address. We were talking about our own policies towards terrorism in our own country. But if it's not being addressed in the countries where it matters the most, then that's a bigger issue that we have to confront because it's impacting the entire world, not just the Arab countries. One
of the arguments that's been made in the presidential race that we're having in the United States is that Arab countries need to start dealing with this at home, which is the argument that she's making. And she goes on to say in her opinion pieces that we can't absolve ourselves of guilt by just saying these terrorists do not speak for the Arab world.
Look, I think that this is not the first time this has been said. She's very attractive. You know, she's gotten a lot of attention, and rightly so. It's an important conversation to have. And most of the people that are killed by terrorism overwhelmingly are Muslims. Terrorism in Muslim countries and Muslim governments are working on this. The issue, though, is that most of these countries are not democratically elected. They're not even countries, as far as I see it. Saudi Arabia is a family business. It is not that they were not elected by the people. A quarter of Saudis live in abject poverty, and they can't say anything about their government because the government controls the media in their country. The government has a strong force that if you say anything against them, you will be picked up. So the only thing you can do is point the finger at the West, and that's the only time the government won't say anything to you. So the issue isn't that they're not talking about this. The issue is that they can't talk about it about their government, because if they do, they'll be imprisoned or killed.
So saying this in a newspaper in Kuwait is not necessarily going to have any impact in Saudi Arabia?
Well, Kuwait is the same thing. The Kuwait is, again, there's a Kuwaiti family. Again, It's a family, and it's a royal kingdom. And if you say anything against the Kuwaiti family, then you're arrested and imprisoned.
So what about that?
Yeah, but that's not really the thought process of all of these countries. And there are some countries that you can actually adopt some policies to look at terrorism. And I think that's why she's starting this conversation. She's also starting the conversation so those of us in the West can look at it as well and try to aid some of these countries.
So what is the answer?
We aid these countries, right? I mean, our biggest ally, right, after Israel is Saudi Arabia. Republican administrations and Democratic administrations. We aid these people, we give them weapons, we give them tear gas to put down their population. So it's not, so on the one hand, we can't point the finger at them. On the other hand, we support all of the dictators and royal families in the Middle East. We allow them to have the power and the weapons to keep their people down. And when, you know, the uprisings occur, this terrorism phenomenon, then we don't realize that our allies are the ones that are creating it.
Final thought.
Okay, so I also think that not only is she bringing this up for the Arab countries and other countries in the Middle East, but this is also going back to what our presidential candidates have been saying, for us to look at our own internal policies. Because if they're not going to make sure that things are coming to a peaceful, or if they're not making sure that they're on top of it in their own countries, then we need to secure our borders. That's why we have our Republican presidential candidates talking about this.
All right.
Well, one thing Donald Trump has said, that he would allow rich Arabs, people that are his friends, into the country.
All right.
Those are the people that cause the problems.
All right, we're going to leave it right there.